Putin Braking News. Putin's nuclear plan will have zero effect, says a former U.S. ambassador. Former U.S. Ambassador Stephen Pfeiffer expressed concern this week about Russia's plans to deploy nuclear weapons. Non-resident senior fellow at the Brookings Institution and former ambassador to Ukraine wrote an opinion piece in the Kyiv Independent on Tuesday about Putin's announcement that Russia was deploying tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, stated in an interview published on March 25 that Russia would station nuclear tactical weapons in Belarus for use by the Belarusian armed forces. As Pfeiffer pointed out in his op-ed, Russian President Vladimir Putin recently announced that Russia was planning to place a Tacticast weapons in Belarus. He compared this to U.S. nuclear sharing with its NATO allies. The reality is that, even if Russian nuclear arms are actually placed in Belarus, that would not increase the military threat to Ukraine or to NATO. If Ukraine sends even one soldier into Belarusian territory to kill his people, the answer will be most cruel, Lukashenko warned. Putin likes to appear strong and to show that he can take provocative steps to retaliate for actions he does not like, Pfeiffer wrote in the opinion piece, suggesting that the deployment of nuclear weapons in Belarus could be in response to the arrival of Leopard tanks in Ukraine or the failure of Russian forces in Bakhmut. Putin may be desperate or even pathetic for announcing a nuclear arms deployment that will have no real military impact, as Pfeiffer put it. Pfeiffer added, Lukashenko should be concerned, as he must know that any nuclear weapons in Belarus will remain firmly under Russian control, as Putin appears ever more dependent on Xi. Ever more dependent on Putin, just as Putin seems ever more dependent on Xi, Lukashenko might want to mind what he has left of Belarusian sovereignty, Pfeiffer said. Journalists from Der Spiegel and the Munich-based investigative group Paper Trail Media, in collaboration with The Guardian, ZDF, Der Standard, Austria, the Swiss Tamedia Group, The Washington Post, Süddeutsche Zeitung, and Le Monde, have spent the past few months working with the whistleblower, and have just published a series of articles describing the documents, which they have dubbed the Vulcan Files. A wimp who doesn't give an F about the people, Vladimir Putin has been called. A leak of a phone conversation between Russian music producer Iosif Prigozhin and billionaire Farhad Akhmedov goes like this. The apparent political predictions in the call are what will keep Putin up at night more than the personal disdain of former allies. A voice purportedly belonging to Akhmedov predicts, there will be fascism there, that's what's going to happen. A military dictatorship, apparently referring to the future of Russia. If widespread, these opinions would be catastrophic for Putin's legitimacy and, by extension, his ability to remain in power. Without his inner circle of billionaire backers, many of whom he has empowered through decades of systemic corruption, the Russian autocrat would be nothing. His disastrous handling of the war in Ukraine, which has killed or injured 250,000 Russians and wiped billions off the Russian stock exchange, appears to be causing growing discontent among these oligarchs. The oligarchs are aware that they may have to decide between continuing to financially support the current regime and backing a successor, or withdrawing their support and watching as their yachts and mansions across Europe are seized as a result of sanctions. The possibility that Russian elites have begun to consider life in a post-Putin Russia is intriguing in this light. The fact that pro-Putin state media and propaganda outfits have remained silent on the matter is indicative of how worried the Kremlin is. However, Prigozhin admitted that while the leak was fake, there were some real things here.